I'm Satrio.
And I'm Miguel.
And we're Aryzma Technologies. All right, let's talk about starch. Starch is something that's everywhere. It's in so many industries around us. And this is a little diagram that illustrates, for example, it's in the plastics industry, in ethanol, just to name a few. So we need starch to do things like make beer. It's in plastics like this golf tee. It's even in babies' diapers. And then, of course, it's in the ethanol that's making this car go. So a huge source of starch is corn. But to be able to use the starch, we have to break down the corn kernel, which is a kind of complicated process.
So starch, for many of the applications that Erica mentioned, to be useful, it has to be broken down into little pieces, these simple sugars. And you take these simple sugars and you can make bioethanol, or you can use it as food ingredient. And this process is costly because of the energy that's needed, the use of hazardous chemicals and costs associated with the disposal. And it also requires enzymes called amylases. And if you don't know what an enzyme is basically a special kind of molecule found in living things that can do some kind of chemistry. And in this case, these amylases are able to degrade big molecules of starch into smaller sugars. So to solve this problem of the costly processing of starch, we have our flagship product called Silozyme. So Silozyme, it's itself an enzyme, but it makes amylases work more efficiently. And this technology has been developed by Dr. Gentry and Dr. Vanderkoy from the University of Kentucky Biochemistry Department. So Silozyme makes starch processing easier. Therefore, there's less resources needed to degrade starch, and that equals cost savings. So you need less amylases in the process, and you need less energy, and you can reduce the amount of hazardous chemicals in the process. So overall, our enzymes allow bioethanol and food companies to process starch faster and cheaper.
So just to give you a real-world example of how we save companies money, if you look at a U.S. facility producing about 50 million gallons per year of ethanol at a total cost of about $87 million, if you look at the energy and disposal costs as well as the enzyme costs, we ultimately save companies with a conservative estimate of 30% increased efficiency, total 13% on their bottom line. So we save them $6.5 million. Enzyme costs as well as energy and disposal costs total about 25% of that $1.74 per gallon total. The global enzyme market is quite attractive at about $3.4 billion. Amylases, as Satrio mentioned earlier, which are the complementary enzyme that Silozyme will work with and increase efficiency, total about 25% of that $3.4 billion. The market is very concentrated with about 3 companies comprising 75% of the total market share, that being Novozymes, DuPont, and DSM. Our focused enzyme segments are going to be, again, the food and beverage sector as well as the bioenergy sector, which comprise about 44% of that total. Our revenue streams, since the market is so concentrated with those top tier competitors holding about 75%, we're going to leverage them as potential customers, so use them as distribution to ultimately market to these end users, which are food processors and ethanol producers, examples being ADM, Grain Corp, Conagra, Cargill, and Valero, just to name a few.
And where we're at right now, in the past few years, the labs have obtained state and federal grants that has allowed us to develop Silozyme and test the enzyme at a lab scale. And in this upcoming year, we plan to obtain more funding so that we can afford lab space and hire scientists so that we can scale up the process and test the enzyme at an industrial scale. And for the next few years, we hope to produce Silozyme at a larger scale to be able to sell it to customers and develop additional starch enzyme technologies. With that, we'll take any questions.